Hey everybody, welcome to BK Live. I'm Brian Vines. Yes, we're alone again today, but tomorrow we'll welcome some co-hosts. But right now, it's just me and you. So we're starting off today with three little items that I found that were of interest. Number one, Obamacare has been hotly debated. You know, there's been a lot of back and forth politically about it, but has it hit you in your waistline and your pocketbook? Well, the folks from a pizza place here in Brooklyn, Franny's right there on Flatbush Avenue, have a novel approach to paying for their Obamacare. They have tacked on a 3%, there it is, a 3% surcharge. This was just appeared on their menu and website. A 3% surcharge will be added to all checks to contribute to the cost of the Affordable Care Act for all Franny's employees. Now, Obamacare kicks in when employees have 50 or more employees. The employers have to kick in for their insurance. So the folks at Franny's have two other places on Flatbush Avenue, Rose's and Brooklyn Larder. So they are passing along the cost to the patrons. There's been some mixed reviews about this, but the price of a pasta dish has gone from about $18 to $19, and that pizza that used to cost you $18 will now be a cool $20. So they'll see if people reject it or just stop eating a little bit more, but it's an interesting way to pass on that Obamacare cost. But moving on, there's another story that's caught my eye this morning. Hoverboards. Now, we had a person from the New York City Transportation Department here last week and talked about the fact that, yes, hoverboards are in this hovering in a lane of we're not sure just what they are. They're definitely motorized, but there's some questions about the legality of it. And there's a protest because a city council member from the Bronx, Andy King, is going to be having a protest because in the 26th precinct, the police have tweeted out there that they're going to be charging people a $200 fine if you're seen on the sidewalk on a hoverboard, and a lot of folks are mad about that. So if we go back to the previous slide, they're organizing a march to go to City Hall to have a rally there to say, we want our hoverboards. And they said that it is a tax on the poor because they get the tickets, but I don't know how poor you are if the Macy's down the street is selling these hoverboards for $600. Maybe there's a Black Friday deal in the making there. But interesting, if you're a fan of the hoverboard, maybe you'll hover down to City Hall Park to let the mayor know how you feel about it. Moving on to our final item of the day, there is a bird that is making a lot of noise in Prospect Park, not because of its loud song, but its loud colors. It's a beautiful painted bunting, and he was spotted in Prospect Park this Sunday. Now, this is noteworthy because it's the first time in history that a male adult of this species has been found in Prospect Park, and hundreds of people have been flocking to the LaFrac Center in the park to catch a glimpse of this bird. It's the first time that a male adult's ever been spotted, as I said, but it's only one of 10 of this species that have been spotted in Prospect Park since 1927. So look up if you're walking through the park. You may see some history there. All right, lots of other things happening in New York over the past few days, with the mayor hearing a chorus of no's and the assembly speaker hearing a big, fat, loud guilty. Up first, we've got two local reporters joining us to talk about these developments, or in the mayor's case, a lack of development, as well as an ongoing debate over everything from pop-up raves to my favorite bike lanes. And more cyclists and fewer cars is just one tiny piece of an urban future. If we move fast enough to ensure there will be a future, we're focusing, of course, on the impact of climate change on our city. And don't forget, on our town hall meeting that we're having a week from today, it's going to be all about how the impact of global warming and climate change is going to affect Brooklyn right now. But Terraform One, a nonprofit design firm that's working on all sorts of fascinating solutions like building houses that can grow crickets for food and making chairs out of mushrooms. What? You may be asking yourself, but you're just going to have to watch to find out. Michael Bellamy is going to cover 2 local sports, one for the kids who use their feet, and the other for people, definitely not kids, who use their fists. He's taking us to Sunset Park to meet the AC Brooklyn soccer team for kids 12 and under. And then live in the studio, he's going to be talking to a Brooklyn boxer who just might be headed to the Olympics. And you can ask folks from out of town what Brooklyn's biggest attraction is, and they might very well tell you it's the Barclays Center or 1 or 2 million hipster restaurants that have popped up. But for most of them, they'll still include Coney Island, which makes sense since for the last 150 years, the boardwalk, the rides, and oh yeah, the ocean have been a huge draw. We're going to meet the curator of a new exhibit of Coney Island photographs, paintings, and objects at the Brooklyn Museum. But first, we've got some juicy news stories waiting for us from our reporter roundtable, coming right up. Well, New York City's major ink-on-paper publications churn out literally hundreds of pages of copy every single day. Now you factor in the blogs, vlogs, tweets, and your know-it-all co-workers at the water cooler, and there's just too much news to wade through before a fresh wave hits you the very next day. So here at BK Live, we've done some of the work for you, and you won't get any ink on your fingers or have to click away from that cat video on your desktop. But why stress? Right now, you can hear 2 of the city's best reporters share their insights on why the mayor can't get his housing plan past the community boards and just how far the state's mightiest legislator has fallen, among other things. Will Brederman is a politics reporter at the New York Observer and a frequent guest here at BK Live. Welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me again.
Well, for the first time, we're happy to welcome from the Brooklyn paper, reporter Allegra Hobbs.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I don't know if it's the top or the bottom that we're starting at with Mayor de Blasio and the fact that he can't get a redevelopment plan. Everybody thinks 200,000 units of affordable housing being created or preserved is a good idea, but he couldn't get it past the community boards, Will.
You know, the issue right now is his mandatory inclusionary zoning plan, which you would obligate developers to build about 25 to 30% of their units for 60% of the area median income, which would be about $46,000 a year for a family of 3. And I believe also another additional 30 would have to be preserved for or reserved for the people making about 80% of the area median income, which would be about $60,000 a year for a family of 4, or family of 3 rather. The big complaint everyone keeps coming up with is they feel like it's just not enough. It just doesn't preserve enough at the very lowest levels of income, and especially in some of the neighborhoods that are slated for redevelopment in Brooklyn, most particularly East New York, which is supposed to be the first of 15 citywide that are going to get the de Blasio treatment. It's one of the poorest neighborhoods in New York City. It has a median income of about $34,000 a year. So
it's the last frontier in a lot of ways. East New York is in the spot now.
Right, and you've got multiple train lines out there at Broadway Junction, so it's an area that could be redeveloped, and de Blasio's plan really does call for that to become a mixed income neighborhood with some middle class housing, some low income housing. He says it's possible to do it without displacing anybody, without anybody getting priced out. Obviously, the local community board and now has disagreed, and now it's important to separate out. What's got rejected is the mandatory inclusionary zoning plan for the whole city.
Right.
The East New York development, that's going to have to get passed even further down the road and get approved even further down the road. But I saw Allegra had a piece last night on the vote in the Brooklyn Borough Board where it got shot down.
Well, Allegra, tell us about that one.
Yeah, it did get shut down. It was out of 16 city council members only for the borough.
Right.
Only 9 showed up, and 2 abstained. Levin abstained, and Cornegie abstained.
Okay.
So that means that only 7 actually voted. The rest remained mum, and the 7 that voted it down and put through the borough board's recommendations. And what you were saying about the concerns for East New York with not enough consideration given to those that are the lowest earners. That's a consideration in other neighborhoods as well.
Yeah,
I was at the community board member.
representing Bed-Stuy, and Levin is Williamsburg.
Williamsburg and Greenpoint,
yeah,
yes.
in Greenpoint.
Yeah, but I was at the community board 4 meeting when they put it through with recommendations, and there were Bushwick residents very concerned that there wasn't enough consideration given to those earning between $20,000 a year and $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
There's consideration for those earning roughly $46,000, like you said, Will, but not for the lowest
People
earners.
at the lowest rung.
Yeah.
Well, that's funny. You spoke about all those train lines at Broadway Junction, sort of on the other end of the L train, closer to Bedford. You had a story about hotels there and how they're mixing things up with zoning and all of that stuff, and maybe some loss of jobs or space that is going to hotels.
Right. Well, with Mayor de Blasio, he held a press conference in Greenpoint. There was concern about industrial business zones, is what you're referring to, which are zones that are supposed to be set aside for creating what it sounds like industrial
There's
businesses.
the White Hotel sitting in
And
the
there
middle
are,
of an
there are developers
space.
going in and putting in hotels, which is, or storage facilities, which create very few jobs.
Right.
So the mayor wants to create, more rigid, hard-lined legislation that would preserve manufacturing jobs in manufacturing facilities in these zones.
Well, this is like the revitalization of Williamsburg, of course, was because of the proximity to the city, but also because of the abundance of those spaces that had gone fallow, where people started to eke out a living and the artists reclaim those warehouse spaces. That's something that we've seen to an extent in places like Red Hook and Sunset Park as well, where those things were flipping, but the city's sort of ushering Sunset Park a little more, but they might also be welcoming some parties there soon. That you were talking about these pop-up raves that have been the subject of a lot of debate.
Yes, to the dismay of some community members, yes. There was the now rather infamous incident at the new hard plastics factory in Greenpoint, which is a Superfund site, which means it is on toxic land. A party promoter called City Fox attempted to throw a Halloween rave there. They acquired the proper permits from the State Liquor Authority and from the Department of Buildings, which are temporary permits in which you do not have to go through, the usual community board process.
Right.
Community members caught wind of it and started calling 311. Ultimately, the fire department shut it down because they felt that there was not an adequate sprinkler system and that there were fire hazards. But it raised a host of other questions, such as, why they were given these permits when perhaps there should have been more consideration given to the safety of the venue.
So where are we going to party this summer then, if the pop-up raves have been
Well, there are still going to
be
be pop-up raves, and in fact, Assemblyman Joe Lintle, who covers Greenpoint, when he caught wind of it, he was concerned, and he wrote a letter to the Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman, asking for more oversight from the government when it comes to who gets these permits and who is allowed in these facilities. He's not trying to stamp out pop-up raves or prevent people from partying. He just wants there to be a little more consideration given to the safety and quality of life of the neighborhoods.
Well, talking about legislation, we're back with Sheldon Silver now. The man is guilty on all counts, which was kind of surprising to some because this wasn't a smoking gun case where the lines were so direct.
Right.
There's a lot of nuance that surrounds this thing, but the most powerful man in the state legislature is going to get a number soon.
Right, and he's not going to be in the state legislature now that he's been convicted. Yeah, Sheldon Silver's case was very interesting because it did not necessarily involve what they call an explicit quid quo pro, which literally means this for that.
Right.
I give you money and you give me what I want, or vice versa. He had these sort of very interesting sort of back channels wherein he would either arrange, one case he arranged money to go to a mesothelioma center where the doctor agreed to refer his patients.
And this is all through his law firm.
All through one of his law firms, and then he added another law firm, which actually technically was not an employee of, but he was telling developers, particularly Glenwood Management, which is a major luxury developer, send your tax, what they call tax cert work, to this law firm that's run by my childhood friend, and comes out after new disclosure rules in 2011. This firm had been giving him referral fees. It was all done through this process of referral fees, which you could argue is shady. But the big question was, is it illegal? And that the jury decided yes, that is illegal. That is a what do you call a quid quo pro?
Victimless crime.
But well, I mean, depending on technically, the case, which is very interesting, is that they made because he was charged with extortion. Besides the victims being the people of the state of New York who were deprived of his honest services, technically one of his victims was a developer because that qualifies as extortion. If you're being, if you're trying to get a tax break, a tax credit from the state, and he's telling you, well, by the way, I've got this friend with this law firm. Please send them your tax cert work. That was considered extortion. We'll see if it holds up on appeal. We saw just very recently the former state Senate Majority Leader Joe Bruno was convicted of honest services fraud and saw his conviction completely overturned, and then the people of the state of New York ended up having to pay his legal bills. So we'll see if this holds up. I'm certainly going to keep watching this.
Well, there's only one more possibly corrupt politician in the state legislature, and Dean Skelos and his son are in the midst of a trial right now. Yesterday, there was a lot of recordings that were released that were made for good listening. And how does the conviction of Silver bode for Skelos and son?
Well, the charges against Skelos, it's a matter of whereas. Here, the way a lawyer explained it to me this way: the charges against Silver was a matter of interpreting the law. What Silver did? Does it violate law? Skelos is trying to contest the facts of the case as being presented by the prosecution. So it's a little bit of a, not necessarily a complete apples and oranges comparison. There are a lot of parallels, including the fact that they were both accused of shaking down Glenwood Management in some form. But it's a little bit different case. It seems to me as just a someone who's not going to law school and just a reporter that it's a little bit more clear cut than Sheldon Silver. Either he basically got payments for his son and no-show jobs for his son by exerting pressure on people, or he didn't. And the recordings so far have been very colorful and very entertaining. But the evidence, is starting to pile up that suggests perhaps that was the case.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about more development. Brooklyn bike lanes. That's always fun.
That's always fun.
So what's happening over in the bike lane land in GP?
In Greenpoint, well, there is a possible plan to put a greenway bike lane, the city to put a greenway bike lane along through the areas we were just talking about, much of it being an industrial business zone and manufacturing along Commercial Street on the waterfront. And there is some concern from community members as well as workers in those manufacturing facilities that it's not the best place for a bike lane, that it would cause the truck traffic coming in and out of the warehouses to get backed up, and that it would be possibly unsafe for the cyclist.
It's 2015, almost 16, and we're still fighting about bike lanes.
It matters to people.
It definitely
a lot of
matters
bikers
to
here.
people. I'm a biker. I'm always on the side of a bike lane. So the argument is that it's going to back up the trucks where people shouldn't even be anyway. But clearly, people are moving into those neighborhoods. And
that's
need to
right.
cycle
And in
around.
fact, there's a lot of development that's going to be coming to that very area in the next few years with the Greenpoint Landing, and that's another concern is that people are concerned the city, and putting these greenway bike lanes in are not taking into consideration
Is that why
the
Levin
influx
is
of
abstaining and not voting on things? It's his district over there. So what is an underreported story that we've not been focused on in the midst of all this corruption?
One of the things that actually struck me from Allegra's story last night was one of the people who was conspicuously absent, one of the council members who was conspicuously absent from the borough board vote that would have incorporated the community board chair people, the borough president, and the council members, was Councilman David Greenfield. He represents Borough Park. He's also the chairman of the city's land use committee. So the future of the mandatory inclusionary zoning plan the mayor has goes through his committee. The road runs right basically through his front yard. And he abstained, he didn't show up, he didn't vote. And very recently there was this announcement that the city was going to fund security for private schools, and that's a great benefit to the yeshivas that are in, the religious Jewish schools that are in Councilman Greenfield's district. I think you got to begin to wonder, is something being, quid pro quo. It's completely legal, and it's how these things get sorted out. I think we saw a little bit of a prequel to this whole mix-up over zoning with the Astoria Cove project in Queens, where it got shot down by the community board, got shot down by the council member, got shot down by the borough president, and then it ended up passing. And there were some things that the mayor agreed to give the councilman's district in that case. So I think you're going to see some people, I think, that may withhold or sort of be into sort of, are unwilling to commit themselves as of yet, because they're hoping that perhaps there's going to be something that they can eke out, whether it's a park refurbishment or some stuff for a school or what have you, for their district from the mayor. So I'm looking forward to that process, because he keeps saying, well, this is going to be decided ultimately by the city council. So, and that's where he can begin to try to, offer some things perhaps in exchange, because this is really, he's decided, a big part of his legacy.
Well, we'll keep watching that, especially when we had Daniel Drum here talking about the curriculum in the yeshivas and the fact that they're not meeting some standards according to a lot of folks in the community. So that's going to be a hotly watched thing we'll continue to work on. Okay, I'm sorry to make you the biking reporter too, but I just saw a story about the Idaho stop and its viability here. That's going to be our final word. Do you think we're going to see that? Reynosa is down with it.
Reynosa is down, but it's difficult to say. It's a little divisive. What you have cyclists saying is that these are laws that they're following anyway, although they're not the letter of the law yet. Right. Cyclists are saying we are treating often stop signs or stop lights as stop signs and stop signs as yield signs, which is the law of the land in Idaho. So you have cyclists saying, look, this is what I'm doing anyway because it's perfectly safe. I am yielding to pedestrians. I am, being conscientious of other, drivers and pedestrians and cyclists. Right. But when I get pulled over, I get the same treatment as a 2-ton motor vehicle, and I get a $200 plus ticket. Yeah. But then you have people raising concerns about, saying that maybe cyclists should be treated the same as motor vehicles. They can still hit pedestrians, They can still cause some damage, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
My bias is showing.
Reynosa is behind it, and there's a lot of cyclists behind it.
Yeah, well, it's a great story, and even more enthusiastic than the story is the comments below, which I always get stuck reading everything. But I urge you to head over to the Brooklyn Papers and check out that story on the Idaho stop with some real reporting from Idaho by Allegra on the Brooklyn Paper. And Will Brederman, thank you for being here as well. We'll keep watching what's happening in the States.
Look forward to it.
All right, well, Mitch Joachim is designing for the future as the co-founder of Terraform One. Joachim believes it's up to the designers of today to make products that are not only beautiful, but practical and sustainable. He says it might take a crisis to spark a change, but will it? Let's take a look.
In the next 100 years, we can expect human population to reach 11 billion people. Is this something that is sustainable?
So I don't know what the future is going to hold. I'm just pretty sure that we either get sustainability and we move into the next generation, or we screw that up and know us pretty much. So it sounds a little fearful, doesn't it? It's like the doomsaying model, I think, is not good. That works with some people, but with others who are not convinced, that this is true, they'll do just the opposite.
Terraform One is a nonprofit organization. We are interested in pushing the boundaries of ecological design and thinking of the future of our cities.
Whether it's waste, climate, transportation, architecture, we approach those things through a design research process, which is very interdisciplinary. We bring in smart researchers with backgrounds from art to design, technology, and business as well, and we try to put people together to see what sort of solutions we can discover through the process.
We really like to push certain boundaries to be very extreme, but we also at the same time try to come up with ideas that could be built today. We were asked by this gallery to come up with an idea for an emergency shelter. So we actually thought of merging the need to create food with the need to have an emergency shelter.
It's for people in some kind of crisis, either from an earthquake or a flood, that don't have access to the protein they need to survive and to have a healthy diet, and don't have access to shelter. So what we've done is we've kind of controlled this geometry to make a beautiful shelter that's easy to unpack and assemble. And inside it we found these very off-the-shelf parts, these kinds of jugs for holding water or for holding and housing crickets. You unscrew one of these points, and you'll be able to pull out a bunch of crickets. You put them into a bowl, and with a pestle and mortar, ground them into cricket flour, and it's an amazing source of protein. So what you're seeing here is this project called the Plug-in Ecology, the Urban Farm Pod. And it's this giant sphere that's made of a rotegrity structure, which is essentially flat packing panels that when unfolded and connected into one another, they form this perfect sphere. And inside that sphere is a series of panels that's meant to grow plants of all kinds. And the thought is that you'd be able to, at home or in some other condition, grow your salad. So what's super cool about this project is it's essentially a chair that's entirely grown. All of the material that you see here is essentially mycelium, or it's the root base of mushroom or reishi that's grown within 7 days from agricultural waste into this hardened surface. Not only could it be used for a chair, but you can imagine this having all kinds of architectural properties for acoustical tiling, for insulation systems, etc. When I'm done with a chair like this, 5, 10 years worth of use, I could throw it into a garden and it feeds thousands of other forms of life. As an architect growing up in the age of deconstruction, we wore basically all black, were very dark and creepy, used forms that were super exciting but didn't really make sense as far as a relationship to people. It was architecture for architect's sake. And I thought, well, you know, there are grand challenges that our society is facing. And I think that architects certainly have the imagination and the skill set and the capacity to tackle some of those challenges. And one of the biggest ones is climate dynamics. We actually had been doing all kinds of studies to look at flooding conditions in New York City, especially in Brooklyn, long before Hurricane Sandy. We did this one project that looks at adapting ghost fleets of former military ships and vessels and using them alongside our shores or the edges of our cities between the East River and also the Hudson River to create a buffer zone to absorb the impact of climate dynamics, to absorb these large surges or charges of water that we're expected to get more often in flooding conditions in New York City. Today in New York, we have this hard line between nature and city. We almost ignore our beautiful waterways to some extent. And I think the way we've engaged that is thinking about how we can deal with transportation systems, but also think about the impact of that water affecting all the different kind of real estate along that edge, and how we can create a relationship and a logic that's using resilient methods so that we can move into the next century and consider the flooding consider the rising waters, consider what's happening with our climate. Growth. Growth is the overriding predicate that I think is affecting us, and it's affecting how we deal with the Earth's resources. We expect unlimited growth all the time, everywhere. You've never seen a leader get elected by saying, I'm going to shrink the economy, create less jobs, and you will all have less stuff. It's always the opposite way, except for we have a finite limit to the amount of resources we can extract. So you can't grow endlessly. So I think in the design world, we need to be accountable for this, because we're the ones that are giving shape to all those resources that are coming out of the earth. But if we're confronted with a real crisis, something super ugly, it's possible for us to retool how we think about our economy and our energy systems and everything that relates to it, and that we have the capacity and the science and the technology to do it. We just need the will.
All right, Terraform. They are doing amazing things out there, and it's very forward-thinking. If you happen to be forward-thinking right now, you should definitely find yourself at our town hall meeting that's coming up on climate change. It's actually the price of climate change, how it's hitting you in your wallet right now in Brooklyn in 2015 into 16. Come to Brick House next week. It'll be great. Coming up, Michael Bellamy talks about boxing with a young fighter hoping to make it to the Olympics. But first, we're going to take you out onto the field with some even younger soccer players who are also probably dreaming of the Olympics someday.
It's called AC Brooklyn. It's an athletic club, Brooklyn. But we start with soccer. In the future, we're thinking to do different activities like basketball, like track, like trying to get more activities. But now we start primarily soccer. Okay, for now, look, he's with somebody. Now you can play with him. Quick, quick, quick. Good. Now, play. Excellent. You see? I came here 13 years ago. Since I couldn't play back in my country professional, I'm from Ecuador. I couldn't play, no, now I'm gonna teach how to play. So I start doing this, all my energy I give to these kids to, to show them, to keep them away from the video games, keep them away from the streets, help them to do something that they like, which is soccer. Shut the ball! Yes, here in the United States, kids are more like spoiled because look at the field they have, beautiful fields. Back in my country, I used to play without shoes. In the middle of the street, they just put two racks on each side and kick the ball. Sometimes we don't have these fancy balls here. I think that's another reason that it pushed me to do something. I have all the tools. All I need is to come, put the team together and run the practice. I have a lot of talent, but the problem is this is a small club, a small youth organization. There is a big club around this area, around New York. When they come, when we go play versus these teams, they see the players, the talent on the players we have. I can't afford to say, okay, you're gonna come and you're gonna get the uniform for free. We can't do that. Parents have to donate in order for us to get. But those teams, they have funds, they have sponsors, they have everything. So what they do is, this kid has talent, so I'm gonna call him for my team for free. AC Brooklyn, to me, is part of my life, part of my family. It is my family. All these kids here are my family. I love these kids. Go sit on the side. They love me, and we're all together. We go everywhere. It's like when I'm here, I breathe pure air. That's part of my life. It's thick all the way inside, in the bottom of my heart. Let's go, guys. Vámonos, vámonos. Let's go.
AC Brooklyn, shaping the lives and the future of soccer in Brooklyn. All right, Olympic boxing trials for the 2016 Summer Games in Rio de Janeiro will take place on December 7th through the 12th in Reno, Nevada. Now, early last month, it was announced that lightweight Carlos Balderas will be the first member of the 2016 U.S. Olympic team. However, for Bruce Carrington Jr. and his Olympic hopes, all is not lost. If he wins next week at the trials, he could make the team as an alternate alternate. Welcome, Bruce,
How you doing,
back to
Mr.
PK
Bellamy?
Live. How's everything, man?
Everything's been going great. You know, this past year has been very fortunate for me. You know, everything has been wonderful.
Now, let's talk about the difference between last year and this year. And also, congratulations on graduating from high school back in June.
Thank you so much. Well, last year, you know, I was, you know, being that I was in school, you know, I was kind of like, you know, like not that active in boxing because I only probably had about like three or four fights in that year. So, you know, yeah, back then I wasn't really as active, but this year I've been extremely active, probably the most active I've been in my whole career, about 21 fights this year. And yeah, so this past year I've been racking up a lot of wins, just won the qualifiers, just for the Madison Square Garden, you know, and I'm doing great right now.
Now, the 21 fights you fought, were some of them here in the New York City area, or were they in different parts of the country?
Different parts. I fought in Philadelphia, I fought in Tennessee, I fought in Alabama, and Georgia actually, and yeah, I go around the globe. I'm actually about to go to Reno, Nevada next week actually too.
Before we get into that, you had a recent fight at the Garden about a couple of weeks ago against your old buddy James Wilkins, right? Heard he was a little salty about that decision.
Yeah, you know, it was a great fight. You know, me and him, we put on a great show. But you know, like I'm not a judge. You know what I mean? You know, it was a unanimous decision, and you know, I was the better man that night. You know what I mean? I felt like when I'm in shape and I'm perfectly in shape and I got my mind in the right place, no one can beat me.
What did you do to win that fight? What was the strategy going into this fight? Because you know his style pretty well.
Yeah, basically, you know, he was the kind of guy that, you know, I knew that he was going to try to rough me up because, you know, he was kind of like, you know, bigger than me in a way. And, you know, I just stayed in my craft, stick to my craft, and then I just boxed him.
I saw you fight this summer. Gleason's gym. I think it was a Metro boxing tournament. It was a whole week of boxing.
Yes.
It looked like you were tiring out there towards the end of the fight. Tell us about that. Why?
Okay, well, at that time I was fighting around like 123, and like I guess like my body was beginning to grow out of that weight class. And before that, I fought in the Georgia games, and I fought at 32. That's my first time fighting at 32. So once I got the call that I was fighting in that tournament back in New York, it took me about like 2 or 3 days to get back into New York, and then, you know, I got back like around on a Wednesday, and I had to fight Friday. So I had to just train on Thursday and then probably get like a little training on Friday, and I was actually in a sauna probably like for a good 35 minutes trying to lose that weight. And then I went in, you know, I came in underweight, but I went in and I was kind of tired already from the sauna, and then, you know, then I kind of got tired of that fight.
How are you a different fighter this year compared to last year? And also, even when you lost in the Golden Gloves a few months ago, how have you gotten better?
You know, the Golden Gloves actually taught me a lot. You know, that was kind of like my first time, like really being in a big stage like that, like having the lights all on me like that. It was crazy, and I had a lot of people. So that was real.
Brownsville came out.
Yeah, Brownsville, they came out to support. I want to give a shout out to Brownsville coming out too, you know. But you know, it was real hard. It was because I couldn't really get my mind on like focused and everything. You know, it was just everything, a lot of stuff going on. But that really taught me to really, you know, become a better fighter and really start just focus on the fight and not focus on everybody else inside the crowd. So this year, you know, I've been training a lot, doing a lot of strength training. You know, I've been, you know, actually I just went up in weight class, as I said before, and you know, mentally, my mind has been on 100, not 98, not 99, 100.
Keep it at 100. Now, speaking of keeping it at 100, you've also were in the first round of the Olympic trials, right? So now you're going for the finals later this week or next week.
Yeah, next week is the trials, and this is basically just to see who's going to get this alternate spot. You know, I was kind of, you know, a lot of people in the 132 division were kind of upset by the fact that, you know, they have Carlos Balderas in the spot already.
Do you think politics played a heavy role in that?
Possibly, you know, but no, I'm just gonna go with the flow. You know what I mean? Because experience is everything, and now I'm just gonna do what I got to do and get my experience, and then, you know, I'm just gonna, you know, take my time and then take one step at a time.
What do you know about him, anyways, a fighter? Did you fight him previously in?
No, I never fought him before, but I've seen him fight before, and he's a pretty good fighter, you know. But as every fighter wants to do, they want to fight the best, and I would love to fight him. I would love to fight the best, because to be the best, you got to beat the best.
Fighting also at the Garden, man. What did that do for yourself, also for your confidence?
You know, fighting at the Garden, you know, because, you know, since when I fought in Barclays Center and I lost in the Barclays Center, it kind of like, you know, put a little, you know, shut my buzz down a little bit, you know. So at the Garden, and when the show that I put on, it put me right back on top, and the confidence it just boosted it even more if it wasn't up already since my last qualifiers in Tennessee.
What do you learn from when you lose a fight at the Golden Gloves, and also when you lose, because you can see that as a setback for a comeback, right? And how do you look at that?
Well, you know, I never look at a loss as a loss, you know what I mean? I always feel like it's either you win or you just have a learning experience, you know? Because I always learn from my losses. It's always something that I did wrong. It's always something that, you know, so I always have to look back at my fights, and sometimes, you know, I gotta, oh, okay, I see what I did wrong, or I wasn't thinking this at that time, you know? But when I'm thinking, everything just flows.
Right. Now, in most amateur fights, headgear is used.
Yes.
For the Olympic trials,
yes,
there's no headgear. How do you adjust to that?
Oh, it was, you know, the first qualifiers that I went to in Philadelphia, I was kind of frantic about it. You know, it was real crazy because I'm watching dudes in the qualifiers, they're all getting cuts and headbutts and all black guys. I'm like, oh wow, yo, it was crazy.
It's a different game, right?
Yeah. So the first,
this is real.
So the fall in Philadelphia, even if a guy skint his head with my head, I'm like, whoa, watch your head, you know. But then, you know, I kind of like, you know, I stopped thinking about that because I am very defensively sound, and I fought in Tennessee, and I stopped caring about it. You know, when I stopped caring about it, that's when I really started flowing. I really started getting into it. And, you know, I got to see a lot. I got to see a lot more, like, you know, like I see more punches, much more punches better. And then I kind of like the feeling of me hitting a dude square in the face. You know, it's just kind of like that feeling right there. It's just, you know, the rush of it.
Does the headgear give you a false sense of security?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And then sometimes it get all in your face and stuff like that, but I love without headgear. It's amazing. I love it. Like, I'm addicted to it now.
Because if you're a real dirty fighter, you can turn that headgear around when you get in the clinches, right?
Yeah, you know, you do a lot of different stuff. So, yeah, the headgear can really interrupt you a lot.
So next week, who are you fighting? You have any idea?
Next week, no, I have no idea because it's about 7 people fighting in my weight class. It could be, you know, they mix up the bracket, you know, they shuffle it all up so I can fight anybody. Yeah.
Adjusting. You have to adjust really quick because when you're a professional or when you know who you're about to fight maybe a week in advance, you have an idea.
Right.
How to strategize, what to do, how to make the moves, how to shift, how to get out the corner, ride the ropes, whatever. For this type of fight, you got to adjust quickly. You got to almost adjust on the fly.
Yeah, you kind of got to, it's kind of like you kind of got to wing it a little bit, you know? But I actually like, you know, because I actually like fighting guys that I don't know about, you know, because I really like, I let my hands go a little bit more and stuff like that. You know, guys that, you know, that I know that I fight, I really like, you know, I still figure them out a little bit in the first round. Then if I see that's what they're doing, then that's when I start capitalizing and stuff.
Olympics, you make the Olympic team as an alternate. Golden Gloves, pros. When would you turn pro?
I'm gonna take my time turning pro. You know, I'm gonna stick it out for the amateurs for a few years now, and you know, I'm just gonna, you know, I'm gonna wait until like I'm really build a strong resume. You know, I already have a strong resume, but I want to make it even stronger. You know, so when I turn professional, I can become more marketable.
Right. It's all about the money.
Yeah, it is.
Right? That's what Mayweather tells us. All right. Now, Bruce is still boxing as an amateur, but as we discussed, the professional game isn't far off. And why not? Well, we're about to hear in this B-side performance by Sky Zoo, Money Makes Us Happy.
This is a record called Money Makes Us Happy. Scared to death by this race I run. And all that's left is everything I want. Slowly losing my time, quickly taken back from me. Seems my friends are few. Mama said okay. Happiness comes from money makes us happy. Money makes us happy. Money makes us happy. They say money makes us happy. Money makes us happy. Money makes us happy. Money makes us happy. They say money makes us happy. Money makes us happy, and happiness is everything, and everything is now, and now is more than ever, and there'll never be a moment where happiness doesn't matter. So if you could quote the prices of your happy, then get at a show, learned it from right where you saw me posted at. Grew up holding on to it all, unless there's hope attached, cause me, I don't hope for much. if anything at all. They said your cue could depend on what you could bring along, so we was bringing everything that mattered to us most. It was money and it was cars and it was habits keeping both. It was hundreds and it was scars and they just happened to be close. It was hunger getting involved, so then it was back to being broke, and we just wanted a shot or two. Mellow on the follow through, promised me it would open these doors. So what did they promise you? So I just do whatever it take to run with it all, and enough to buy my way next to Jesus if I get lost. Swag. Yeah, inside, run, and by this race that I run. Hey, it's everything that I want. Okay, my time taken back from me. It seems my friends are few. Mama said yeah. Money makes us happy. Money makes us happy. Money makes us happy. They say money makes us happy. Money makes us happy. Yeah. Money makes us happy. Yeah. Money makes us happy. Yeah. Money makes us happy. And it was falling out the sky like if Dougie Fresh was performing, and we already had too much, and so we was brushing it off with some pictures in front and back, drops to like 4 in the morning.
All right, that was Brooklyn's own Sky Zoo on B-Side, which is happening Thursday. But right now, just as Coney Island has had its ups and downs and ups over the years, the past 150 to be exact, artists have shown us its colorful and oddball history as a vacation spot for the wealthy, as the world's first great mecca for mass entertainment, as a prime example of urban decay, and today as a neighborhood reclaiming some of its old showbiz shine. Well, the Brooklyn Museum has put together many of those artistic impressions in a new exhibit called Coney Island: Visions of an American Dreamland, 1861 to 2008. And here to tell us what you'll see there and why it was chosen is Connie Choi, Assistant Curator of American Art. Thanks for joining us,
Thank
Connie.
you for having me.
So this is a thick old catalog. So
it's a very big catalog.
how many works are in this thing?
In the Brooklyn presentation,
Right.
there's 142 works. So it's a
142 works.
it's a hefty exhibition.
All right, doctor, I'm going for the book. Get your shot of the book before I crack it. So all of these years from 1861 to 2008, how do you only pick that many works then?
Yes, this is an exhibition.
Your job?
No, fortunately, it wasn't my job. This is an exhibition that was curated by Robin Jaffe Frank, who's
Right.
chief curator at the Wadsworth Atheneum Museum of Art.
Okay.
And it's an exhibition she's been working on for several years now. And she has told me that she actually started off with a list of about 500
Right.
works that she narrowed down to the selection of about 140.
That's phenomenal. So one of the things that I was most taken by was the fact that in that early 1800s history, Coney Island was this sort of wealthy watering hole, an enclave for the well-heeled. And I have to tell you, I was at Coney Island on Memorial Day this year, and there weren't a lot of ladies with bustles out there. It was decidedly more relaxed.
Yeah. This is actually a really great painting because it shows you the variety of people that have always gone to Coney Island. I mean, when we think about Coney Island now today, we think about the diverse crowds that are there. And from its very beginning as a leisure locale, it was attracting diverse crowds. And so this painting by Samuel Carr, which was done around 1879, shows you young couples, it shows you families with children, it shows you single women, which was unheard of in the 19th century.
Unchaperoned
Exactly.
ladies.
The fact that women could go to Coney Island by themselves was really kind of interesting for that time. And it also shows you African American couples at Coney Island at the end of the 19th century. I mean, it's a really interesting place, and that's why the exhibition really speaks to not just Coney Island and not just Brooklyn, but about America as a whole and what America how America has progressed throughout the years.
Coney Island is an epicenter of all of that. So we do have some photos of some of the works that are in the exhibit that we are going to go through chronologically and bring people up to 2008. But what are we looking at now?
We are looking at a painting by
gorgeous.
Joseph Stella. It's called Battle of Lights, Coney Island, Mardi Gras, and it was done from 1913 to 1914.
Wow.
And this is actually the painting that started Robin thinking about Coney Island. This is a painting that belongs to the Yale University Art Gallery, and several years ago, I think about 7 or 8 years ago, when she was still a curator at the Yale University Art Gallery, she was kind of intrigued by this idea: why were so many artists going to Coney Island?
Right.
And this is again 1913, 1914, and so she began investigating this idea, and she realized that. One of the reasons was that Coney Island really becomes a microcosm of the American experience. You have these very distinct periods of time where Coney Island reflects the moods of the nation. And so this is really a showstopper in the exhibition. Joseph Stella was an immigrant. He came from Italy. And so he had an understanding of European modernism. So he's combining European modernism, here seen in futurism, with the greatest American modernist spectacle, which is Coney Island at the time.
Well, it's gorgeous, and you can see why Stella inspired the curator, but what inspired the Brooklyn Museum to go down the route of Coney Island?
Yeah, I mean, Robin, again, the exhibition debuted at the Wadsworth Atheneum Museum of Art earlier this year, and then traveled to San Diego Museum of Art. It's here at the Brooklyn Museum now until March 13th.
Where it should be.
Where it should be, and then it goes to the McNay Art Museum in San Antonio. So I think this really speaks to how Coney Island is for everyone. It's not just for people in Brooklyn or New York, but it really speaks to the American imagination. And so Robin really wanted the exhibition to be at Brooklyn, and so she contacted us very early on and asked us if we were interested, and of course we were interested. And so that's why we have it.
Okay, the most famous face in all of New York, perhaps. Who is this guy? What's the story here?
That is the Steeplechase Funny Face. He was the icon of Steeplechase Park, which opened in 1895, and it's actually it was the longest running park in Coney Island. It didn't close until 1964, and that kind of devilish grin greeted visitors for 70 years to Coney Island. And he kind of embodies the spirit of Coney Island, what Coney Island means to people. And at the time, at the end of the 19th century and into the early decades of the 20th century, it was evocative of how Coney Island really allowed people to break loose, right?
So
they
iconic.
they didn't have to follow the rules of society when they were at Coney Island, and this really devilish grin with his hair kind of coming up into 2 points.
Implied horns.
Yes, really speaks to that.
Very cool. Makes me want a corn dog. We got another picture now of a little hanky-panky going on. We've moved on from the bustles and no ankles showing to a little innocent fun.
Yeah, and this is a photograph by Morris Engel. It's called Coney Island Embrace, New York City. It's from 1938.
It's a good Pepsi commercial, too.
It's a great Pepsi commercial, and that's how Robin describes it. She talks about Pepsi as being a commercial flag planted in the sand. That Pepsi bottle really claiming this land is America at a time when the country was in turmoil, right? This is right before World War II, and we have a soldier on the beach, and he's most likely going to be sent off to war soon. So he's, hugging his girlfriend goodbye. But the interesting thing about this photograph and what you just mentioned is that men actually weren't allowed to bare their chests on Coney Island until the 1930s.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it? Good. Let's go back to those days. I saw a lot of unfortunate chests out there this summer. But moving on, this is Under the Boardwalk. Yeah?
This is actually a production still from the film Little Fugitive, which was done in 1953. And it's a film by Morris Engel, the same photographer that we just saw. And this was really an iconic film. It features a 7-year-old boy named Richie Andrusco, who plays the character of Joey, and Joey is tricked into thinking he killed his older brother.
Oh, wow.
So he actually goes to Coney Island to escape, and he finds out how to survive at Coney Island. And the film was done in an improvisational documentary manner.
A real
and so,
day in the life
so you're
of
just
Coney
Joey as he kind of discovers how to survive at Coney. So it's a really kind of groundbreaking film in the 50s, and it's an amazing one to see.
Yeah, it's page 130 in the book. We're looking at it right now. And this is a little bit later, getting more current, but if you look at it, it still has that timeless quality, right?
Yes, this is a photograph by Harvey Stein called The Hug, Closed Eyes and Smile, and it's from 1982. So you have the iconic parachute jump in the background right there, which you can which automatically claims it as being Coney Island.
Yeah.
And this is a really great photograph that really captures, again, the spirit of Coney Island, the diversity of it, the fact that it's a little bit strange and odd with these kind of two disembodied hands approaching the couple at center. And actually, Harvey Stein is going to be at the Brooklyn Museum on Saturday.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, on Saturday, it's our first Saturday, our Target First Saturday, which is going to be a celebration of Coney Island. And we'll have everything from Robin Frank, the curator, giving a curator's talk. We'll have pop-up gallery talks.
Will there be any cotton candy?
I'm sure there will be cotton candy. There'll be sideshow performances, and Harvey Stein will be there doing a talk about his Coney Island photographs.
And this is right before the bad old days here, as the Coney Island was starting to head into decline a little bit.
Well, I mean, this is actually 2008,
Oh,
so it's really quite recent.
This is
yeah,
new. It has that quality of
and that's exactly what he's trying to evoke.
I got tricked.
It's an artist by the name of Frederick Brosen, and it's called Fortune Teller Jones Walk, Coney Island, and again from 2008. And he's really thinking about the decline of Coney Island and thinking about the future. What is in store for Coney Island? And during this period in 2008, Astorland Park just closed, and so he's really considering what's going to happen at Coney.
Okay,
but as we know, it's on the rise again. So.
We've literally got 1 minute left, so we're gonna tease it with the famous guy.
Yes. Everyone should recognize Jared Leto. I mean, who wouldn't?
He's not so bad looking.
This is a production still from the film Requiem for a Dream from 2000. And the director is a Coney Island-born director.
That's right.
Darren Aronofsky, who uses Coney Island as a backdrop to think about how people are in pursuit of the American dream.
Wow. Well, that's the place, and the Brooklyn Museum is the place to see all of this. How long is the exhibit going to be running?
It's up until March 13th.
And then it's going on to Albuquerque?
It goes to San Antonio.
San Antonio, somewhere down there. So you still have a little bit of time to get yourself to the Brooklyn Museum, but why not at First Saturday?
Yes,
which is
definitely.
always a
Everyone
party.
should come out.
All right, we'll see you Saturday
Thank you.
then. And there's phenomenal exhibit. And you can get this big old coffee table book, perfect for anyone who's escaped from Brooklyn, those relatives down in Florida or such. But thanks for joining us
Thank
today.
you for having me.
Well, tomorrow on BK Live, we'll touch on two very different but related aspects of how Muslims experience the city. In the latest episode of On the Grid, all about Arabic-speaking Brooklyn, the pastor of a Syrian Christian church tells Zephyr Teachout what drew his congregation here in the first place. And in a related conversation from our show Straight Up, 3 reporters discuss what the Paris attacks could mean to Muslim communities now that the NYPD is once again stepping up its counterterrorism program. Then we're also going to get some comedy from our Be Funny series, some out-of-the-box suggestions from our pals Dick and Dave, and 2 cocktails, I'm told, from the bartender of a new place called Hell Phone. Now, the names of the cocktail are Desire and Temptation. If that doesn't make you want to tune in, I guess I'll just meet you at the bar then. Have a good day. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.